Raise your family on jihad. Canadian imams unleash fiery sermons. In a disturbing trend, three Canadian imams have recently delivered inflammatory sermons promoting anti Semitism and jihad. Imam Riad Ourzazi, Sheikh Younus Kathrada, and Imam Adnan Abyat used their Friday sermons to denigrate Jews and encourage militant Islamic ideologies. Ourzazi claimed that Jews, quote, killed the majority of its prophets and asked rhetorically, what do you expect from such a nation? Regarding the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Particularly alarming was Abyad's call for Muslims to, quote, raise their families and their nations on the idea of jihad, while also referring to Jews in derogatory language. Kathrada's sermon portrayed Jews as the enemies of Islam and criticized Muslims who emulate them, stating, quote, today we want to be like them. They are the enemies of Allah, like it or not. These sermons, delivered in mosques across Canada and live streamed on various platforms, highlight the growing concerns about the spread of extremist ideologies within religious institutions. The Imam's rhetoric, which ranges from historical revisionism to outright calls for action against perceived enemies, underscores the ongoing challenge of combating hate speech and radicalization in religious contexts, particularly as tensions in the Middle East continue to influence discourse in diaspora communities. So I wanted to cover a combination of these because I love to keep up on my memory. My memory TV. Memory TV is just the gift that keeps on giving, and you can always find something juicy there. And there has been a series of Memory TV posting all these radical sermons all coming out of Canada. So I was like, let's just cover three of them in one because my God. so, and this is important, you guys. Memory, for those who don't know, is an organization that exposes a lot of virulent discourse that happens across different countries. And it often involves translating a lot of what, I don't know, Hamas spokespersons are saying or people like on Lebanese TV. And this is valuable because it's one thing to see what people say to the West in English. It is another thing to see for yourself what people say amongst themselves in their own language. So memory is doing a lot of work of translating this kind of content. Um, Now they also track a lot of these activities and sermons in the West. So that's what we're going to talk about here. Most of this is in English. They do have some Islamic and Arabic terminology thrown in there, which we can dissect. But let's just go ahead and watch some of the clips from these sermons, and then we can.
Which
Do
one?
we want to? I mean, let's do all
Because there's
three. They're not that long.
all three. Okay. Okay. So let's do the first one here. All right. So this is the first one.
Ooh, the audio
Wait, I'm
quality is
hearing it.
horrible.
Hold on. Give me a second. Maybe I will do it. 1 second. 1 second.
No problem.
Okay. I found it. Here's a better version. Let's do this one. What? This is
Oh,
also the same. Yeah. Here,
play
I'll
it from the web
do from
page.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
What the hell? Wait, Armin, it still sounds horrible.
What? You can't hear it?
No, it just sounds horrible, like absolute nonsense.
Really?
Like it just sounds
Oh.
completely garbled.
Oh, can you share it on your end?
Yeah, let's try this. Okay, 1 second.
I think there's something wrong with StreamYard.
Really? Shoot.
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's
one
try it
second.
and from your end see if it works or not.
Okay.
Because I'm hearing it fine when I'm sharing it. Hold on. Maybe if I refresh my, maybe I should, if I go and come back, how about that? Refresh my
No,
stream
no, no.
here.
Let's just try it from me and see
Okay.
how things go. Okay. Oh, for the love of God, my computer. Okay.
Wait, bring it on screen. Okay, no, it's StreamYard. Yours is garbled as well. So yeah, it's garbled. StreamYard today is garbled.
Oh, come on.
It's
Damn
okay.
it.
It's garbled. So it's okay. So what instead of listening to him, maybe you could just wait. You could just read it.
Yeah, okay. So let me then pull up the transcript real quick. And this is
No, you
gonna
could read it
take.
off of the screen. You could read it off of the screen. I will play it. You read it off of the screen.
Oh, okay.
Okay, read it here.
Okay. The prophet said that this matter of Islam will reach the four corners of the world. There will not be one single house left in the entire world that has not heard of something called Islam. There is no God but Allah. Islam will reach the four corners of the world.
Yes.
They are mocking and planning. Yes, you don't have to pause it every time. I think I can read it fast enough. Yes, the Jews entered Palestine through the Balfour Declaration, and they will leave it by Allah's promise. They came to Palestine with the Treaty of Balfour, and they will come out of it with another treaty with the promise of Allah. They will be kicked out from it. Who promised this? Allah. Allah the just, Allah the judge. Yes, let's pause. Then why this killing of these innocent people? Allah keeps giving them chances. What do you expect? What do you expect from a nation that killed their own prophets? This is the only nation that killed the majority of its prophets. 124,000 prophets, 99.999% were sent to them. What did they do? They killed them. They disbelieved in them.
So
What do you expect from such a nation?
so
So,
I think
okay, go
it's
ahead.
important to recognize how he's talking about Jews because not Israel, because he's talking about how most prophets, because Islam's prophets are Judaism's prophets, and he's saying that Jews were mean to their prophets. So basically, he's making it seem like this is something inherently wrong with Jews, right? So what do you expect from when he says this nation? He's talking about Jews. He's saying ethnically Jews have a problem. These are the same people who killed their own prophets. And I think he's also highlighting how God, when people are sinning, he makes them go deeper in hell. God has that. God, when in the Quran you read that when some people are so evil, God gives them more opportunities to sin so that they could just drown in their own sin and go to a deeper part of hell. So one reason why Jews are sent so many of the prophets is so that they do kill them, so that God will have the opportunity to get revenge on them or something like that. So, well, you go on.
And this makes no sense to me because, like, so obviously Christianity and Islam, do a little plagiarism, some copycat on on Judaism. And I was looking into this last night. I have no idea where Islam gets this idea that they have had 124,000 prophets. There
Okay.
are not 124,000 prophets in the Christian tradition. Now, Jewish people in the live chat, do you guys have 124,000 prophets? Because based on my surface level investigation, this seems completely made up. This seems completely made up. So I was like, where are they getting this number? 124,000 prophets? Like this there's not even something approximating this in Christianity. We don't really count our prophets in that way. Like in my understanding of Judaism, it's there is a lineage of prophets, but it's not nearly 124,000. And then I was looking into it, like the libel about Jews killing their prophets is very old, right? This is a classic Christian anti-Semitic accusation against Jews. Jews killed Jesus, blah 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 blah. So this is like, from a Christian perspective, I understand the origin of that libel. But then looking within Jewish tradition, again, Jews in the live chat, please tell me what you understand from your faith tradition, because looking into it, I don't see much of Jews talking about how their prophets were killed. Oftentimes it's more in the context of there was a prophet that came to the Jews, and within the Jewish kingdom, there was a king that maybe persecuted that prophet, or maybe that prophet was persecuted by a ruler, but it was more to do with that king having a beef with that specific prophet than the Jews as a nation trying to kill that prophet. I was like, I think this is just completely made up. I think this is some like totally false Quranic understanding of what the hell Judaism is. So this always gets to me. I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, Armin, do you know what this 124K
Yes.
profit thing came from? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, when you say I think this is completely made up, as opposed to the other religions that are not made up, of course it's made up. It's religion. Okay.
I
So
mean, yeah, but like,
yeah, okay.
you know what I mean.
Yes. Okay. Um. Okay. So what we learn in Islam is that the prophets that are mentioned by name are just the famous ones. They're prophets everywhere. Okay. Because this is essential to have this many prophets. So many of them were not prophets. So many of them maybe like preached to just two guys in a village, you know, that are so these are prophets who got revelation, who just talked to a couple of guys, never known. We don't know their names. They just died without anybody hearing about them. The prophets that are known are just the ones that God made known. But they're prophets in almost every nation, everywhere. There are prophets in China. There were prophets in ancient China. There were prophets from Allah. I don't know, in the among the Mayans, probably, like at some point, right? There were prophets in Africa from Allah since ancient times. That's the idea, but we just never hear their names. Most of the prophets came in the Middle East around Israel, but their prophet God made sure that prophets are there. People have the and the reason why they say that is because of the philosophy in Islam is that everybody had the opportunity to know Allah. Like there should have been opportunities to know Allah. So if you have this idea, like, okay, we just had a few prophets here, and those are the only people who hear the revelation of God, then how is that contradicts with the idea, like, well, everybody had the opportunity to hear about Allah at some point. So to fix that, to fix that gap, like, well, the whole world would not be have the chance to hear about Allah with this many prophets. You just have to introduce a crap ton of more other imaginary prophets. I mean, they're all imaginary, but just more imaginary prophets everywhere else, right? So that's the idea for why we have so many prophets. And regarding Jews killing their prophets, there this actually is from Judaism, because Judaism is a religion that came out of uh, Yahwehism, right? So Judaism originally was a um, religion with multiple gods, with a pantheon of gods, and then eventually evolved uh, from polytheism to monotheism. But in the gap between, it was still polytheism with the cult of Yahweh, celebrating, trying to make people focus on worshiping Yahweh. And the prophets that were being invented during this process was the argument for it. It was that it was the reason why the cult of Yahweh became popular was because of all the hardship and devastation that Jews were going through. So the cult of Yahweh was trying to justify that, but you guys are being screwed because you're worshiping other gods and not Yahweh, right? So you're not listening to our prophets. You're like killing you're killing the prophets of Yahweh. You're doing this. You're not listening to them. So all this hardship on the prophets of God, which at that point was just one of the gods, was being written into the stories of Judaism to explain the hardship that the Jews were going through. But now Muslims have taken those stories and they're like, you're just prophet killers, right? So that's how these stories are connected and involved.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
it just makes no sense. In
Actually,
the
it
way
makes
that
sense.
you explain it, like, okay, I can see the evolution of the meme, but within the actual what
Yes.
they're actually saying, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Wait, so
Right.
let's go to the next video.
Oh, the next video. Okay, let's go. So I'm gonna do with no audio. So you could actually, I prefer listening to you anyways over these guys. So you could read that.
Okay.
So let me actually let me try again. See if the audio is still bad. 1 second.
Mhm.
The Shaheed
Oh,
has
this is fine.
7 blessings.
Oh, this one is fine. Weird.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's read. Let's play this. Why is it hard?
And so forth. They mock, and our messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the martyr, the shaheed, has 7 blessings from Allah. He is forgiven from the moment his blood is first shed. Are we living this? That man who dies on the battlefield defending al-Islam, defending the lands of al-Islam, fighting for me and fighting for you. That man whom the media labels a terrorist, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses him. All of his sins are forgiven. Who can scoff at that? He will be shown his place in paradise. He will be spared the trial of the grave, and he will be secure on the day of the greatest terror, that is the day of judgment. There will be placed on his head a crown of dignity, 1 ruby of which is better than this world and all that it contains. He will be married to 72 of al-hur al-ain, the 72 virgins that they laugh about and they mock us about. Let's see who has the last laugh. Wallahi, the enemies of Islam. They mock and they laugh at this because they're jealous. Believe me, as much as they may mock. And by the way, if any of us who claim to be Muslims are mocking along with them, then maybe you be wretched like them. May you enter the hellfire like them for mocking the words of your messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Shame on you if you mock this as the enemies of Allah mock it. Whether they like it or not, this is a reality. The martyr will have 72 of al-hur al-ain, those maidens in al-Jannah. And he will be permitted to intercede on behalf of 70 of his relatives. When the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, realized the status of martyrdom, and when they realized the value of the martyrs, guess what they did? They strove to be among the winners, those who would attain martyrdom for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I say, this was the way of the Sahaba. But also, right up until this day, those soldiers of Allah, those who are striving to defend al-Islam and the lands of al-Islam, whether it be in Gaza, in Palestine, whether it be in Iraq, whether it be in Afghanistan, whether it be in Kashmir, wherever it may be, they also appreciate the value of martyrdom. And so they are striving to attain martyrdom. the enemies of Islam, the opponents of Islam, they mock the mujahideen. They label them terrorists and whatnot. I warn myself and the rest of you, let us not mock those who are fighting for the sake of Allah. And what right do you have to mock them? They've sacrificed everything. They've sacrificed their homes. They've sacrificed their families, their children, their wealth. They've left their lands, all to defend al-Islam and the lands of al-Islam. They are fighting to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're fighting for the highest levels in al-Jannah, in paradise. And we think we can mock them? What have we done? What have we sacrificed? Whatever we have sacrificed is for worldly gains, temporary gains. That's what we have sacrificed for, not them. So don't you dare be among those who label the mujahideen as terrorists and so on and so forth. They mock them, but Allah honors them. Allah honors them. I beg of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who are martyred in His cause. اللهم انصر المجاهدين في سبيلك في كل مكان اللهم ثبت أقدامهم واربط على قلوبهم وأنزل السكينة عليهم وانصرهم على عدوهم وعدوك يا عزيز يا قوي اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان اللهم خذ بأيديهم وعجل بنصرهم يا عزيز يا قوي اللهم انصر إخواننا المجاهدين في غزة اللهم انصر إخواننا المجاهدين في غزة اللهم عليك باليهود الغاصبين اللهم عليك باليهود المعتدين اللهم أرنا فيهم يوما أسودا اللهم إنا نسألك أن تحرر المسجد الأقصى.
Okay, so two questions.
Go ahead.
Those who are striving.
Let me pause this. First of all, this is in Canada, guys, for people who are new here. This is an imam in Canada. One question, isn't this illegal to promote terrorism like this in Canada? One.
Right.
Two, why is he not going to Gaza himself if this is so good to be a martyr? That's the second question. But go on.
You have very valid questions, and I don't know what's happening if the Canadian authorities are asleep at the wheel. Because I know they would have taken action against other people saying other kinds of things. And this guy is probably the most notorious Islamist imam in Canada. I've been tracking his activities for a long time. And for lack of a better word, the funniest part is that he is based in Victoria, BC. Now, Victoria, BC, if anyone's gone there, is like a sleepy little island town community in the Pacific Northwest. Like, this is literally like it's a pretty quaint little Pacific Northwest island town. It's bigger than other ones in the Pacific Northwest, but at the end of the day, this is an island town. And you have the most virulently hateful imam in Canada. I don't know. I want to know how he ended up in Victoria. I have questions. How did you end up in Victoria? I just want to know. I'm so curious. Because when you visit there, you're like, oh, this is so cute.
It's so beautiful too, by the way.
It is. I love Victoria. So that's a side note.
Living in a piece of heaven. And it's like telling people to go die for the afterlife. Like, oh my God. But let me actually show you Victoria. But go on.
Yeah, and so he is one of the most notorious. He ends basically every sermon like cursing the Jews, cursing the atheists, cursing the infidels. You can go watch all of his stuff online. I don't know how this is still on YouTube. His YouTube channel is Muslim Youth of Victoria. Um, and yeah, he's just permitted to keep on preaching this stuff. And he's the most hateful imam that I've ever come across in Canada. He's notorious. He's done interviews and like collaborations with Daniel Hakigaju. Um, he gives sermons talking about how it's like reprehensible that Muslims today want their kids to be Western, want their kids to be like the Jews, and they're going to be cursed because of it. Um, it's it's absolutely wild. Like, do you have any idea how, as a Canadian, Armin, uh, what's going on here?
I don't know. They're just so letting. I don't know. This is. By the way, I have the laws. Let me actually show you where this person lives. Like they're looking for a heaven while living in basically like he's telling people in Gaza to go die for an afterlife while living in one of the best places on earth. Let me actually show you. What the hell? Why is this one low res? Oh, there we go. So look at these images. Okay, this is Victoria, BC. Okay,
I love
it
Victoria. Oh my god.
this is Victoria, BC. Okay, this is Victoria, BC. This guy lives here. He's having the best of life in the one of the best places on earth, and is telling people in Gaza to go die, and no matter how much they suffer, it's fine because they're gonna be given virgins in the afterlife. Like, why is if it's so good? Why is he in Victoria? Why is he not in Gaza? Can you explain this to me? Why is he like? If I was Muslim, I would be in Gaza right now. Why would I miss this opportunity of martyrdom? There's nothing better, according to Islam. There's nothing better than martyrdom. There's no opportunity at happiness. There's no better opportunity at happiness than becoming a martyr. And there's Gaza is giving you that chance right now. So why are you here? Why not go to the West? Why not go to Lebanon, for example? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's one of
Um,
those situations where it is so it's very great for us because we don't have to tell people that people are out here saying this. We can just go
yeah,
show them this. um
yeah,
I do want to show the last video, Armin, as well, because it's just too juicy. It's just
too
too
juicy.
juicy.
Can I just read something regarding Canadian law? Because okay, so
Yeah.
Bill C-51 introduced a provision that makes it illegal to knowingly promote or advocate for the commission of terrorism offenses. This applies when an individual is aware or reckless about whether their communication may lead to the commission of such offenses. Okay, so yeah, we have this. We have this law. I mean, I could go into more detail, but I'm not saying this law is good or bad, but it should be applied while we have it, right? Like, why is this guy not? Why is the police not at this person's door, given that we have that law? Anyways, I don't know. Let's play this one.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not changing the status of any people, any nation, till they change themselves from inside. We have to start with ourselves, with our own family, with our own ummah, raising them on the idea of jihad, on the idea of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's only becoming how to defend ourselves. How to defend ourselves. Because the Muslims, they have to get up.
So, but let me explain. He's saying like, why are Muslims just focusing on defending themselves? Like, why is the religion of Allah changing to just defensive?
Enough is enough. Muslim blood becoming the cheapest liquid upon this earth. Every Muslim now, he says, you know what? I'm not a terrorist. Who's the terrorist? Bunch of filthy Zionist Jewish.
YouTube, we are against these views. YouTube, this is not our views. We're highlighting this person's disgusting views. This guy is racist, anti-Jewish. Please do not strike us down. We're just
This is for
exposing
educational purposes. This is for
Oh my
educational
God.
purposes, for the purpose of condemning these sentiments.
Yeah.
deciding to destroy Muslim, and they're doing it willingly with no stopping them, no one stopping them. Some Muslim leaders, they agree with them. They want to destroy Hamas. It's coming.
He's angry with the Muslims who are anti-Hamas. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why are you anti-Hamas? How are you even Muslim if you're anti-Hamas?
From us. Shame on us. Muslim country, even those who claim that we are against Israel, we're supporting the resistance of the Palestinian people from inside, just supporting them, supporting Israel and supporting the Zionists. When Muslim abandon jihad fi sabilillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will humiliate them, will put them down till they believe that they have no way but to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. اللهم أيد إخواننا المجاهدين في غزة وفي كل مكان ذكر فيه اسمك اللهم أعل رايتهم اللهم أكرمهم بالنصر في الدنيا والآخرة.
Okay, so this is in Canada, guys, and how this is it's unbelievable. How is this
Not
happening?
only is this in Canada, but this is streamed to YouTube and streamed to Facebook.
Oh wow! And the YouTube channels are okay? They're not stricken down?
YouTube channels are okay. They're the content is up. It's up on Facebook. It's streamed on Facebook, but Atheist Republic is banned on
We
Facebook.
have lost our Facebook we have, guys, Atheist Republic has lost its Facebook page with more than 2 million followers. And we were not saying stuff like this even remotely at all, not even close. How do they get to stream on Facebook like this and survive? I don't understand.
And this is what drives me crazy is like the gaslighting is we're over here talking about like, hey, these are sentiments that are being promoted and popularized in the country. This is happening primarily among diaspora communities. This is a problem. This is real. People actually believe this. And then turning around and basically being told that we're racists and bigots when you can literally go watch it on Facebook yourself. That's what really pisses me off. And also the double standard. The complete double standard. Like all the crazy authoritarian action that the Trudeau government took against the truckers versus this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, what is a good point? Like, this is a much bigger threat than the truckers. Like, why are they not raising the alarm?
The government
over
went in
this?
and like debanked people. They froze bank accounts over that.
Yeah, they're like these people's bank accounts. Nobody's touching that. What the hell?
They probably have charitable status.
Oh wow! So they
and it's more for those who don't know, in Canada, the nonprofit versus charitable organization is different than in the US. It's more difficult to get a charitable organization tax deductible clearance than in the United States. It's an absolute joke. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying not to shit on my northernly neighbors, but what the hell, guys?
Yeah, but I'm gonna say something in the live chat. Some of you are gonna agree with me, but I'm gonna highlight these and just gonna ask you what people saying deport them now. Deport them. They are Canadian. Tell me, okay, you know what? I would love to deport these people from Canada, okay? But what are you guys talking about? They are Canadian citizen. You are not able to, there's no legal pathway. You're dreaming. Can people who telling us to, like, yeah, if you could find me a way to deport these people, okay, sure, let's do it. But how are you going to, what are you just like telling us your wishes? Like, is it like, do you have like a genie somewhere that I don't know, that you think that just because you say something multiple times it's going to happen? How are you going to deport Canadian citizens out of Canada? Like, can you tell me, how are you going to do that? You can't do that. You have to come up with a different solution.
Yeah.
I keep seeing people saying deport. Like, no matter how many times you say that, it's not going to happen. So maybe try something else.
Yeah, no, this requires domestic legislative processes. Like in the United States, there's bills and legislation that have been promoted or submitted that basically go through a process of, if the bill were to be passed, that nonprofit organizations that promote or glorify terrorist entities get their nonprofit status revoked. We actually don't have that on the books right now. Like, I would doubt that Canada has anything similar, and there's actually pushback against this bill from libertarians, um, because there are a lot of nonprofits in the United States that do glorify and lend support to terrorist organizations, and we have laws about different organizations using the nonprofit structure within the United States to launder their money to then go send it for material support of terrorists. And this is a big problem. If you guys want to learn more about this, go look up what happened with the Holy Land Foundation. Um, go and the Middle East Forum has done a lot of work to expose the ways that the nonprofit system in the United States is used to launder Islamist money, to the point that we think of Islamist money like coming in east to west, but it's actually at a point now where the money is going west to east. Actually, we have a huge in millions of dollars diverting from the United States into these organizations in the Middle East. And it's also to the point that like USAID, which is a government grant making program, is actually funding these organizations. If anyone would be interested in me covering that in depth, let me know. Um, because we actually don't talk about the financing structures of these kinds of things very often on this show, but there's a lot of information on this out there, and I have some familiarity with it. So, if that's something that people want to like dissect and expose, like we can dig into that. Um, should we go through these super chats?
Yeah, but before that, look at this guy. This guy is saying Armin is both a pussy and a tyrant at the same time. Oh my god. Says the guy whose only solution is deport, deport, deport. Again, I'm not against deporting, but you're not going to be able to do that. And some people are like, well, let's change the laws so we can do that. Okay, good luck. Let's see if you can do it. With what political? Let's see. Go ahead and try. Let's see if you're going to be successful at that. Like, unbelievable. You guys,
You're a
you guys
pussy.
don't know
You believe in the rule of law and constitutionalism.
I'm okay with changing like laws, but like you guys don't know, you guys don't follow politics, you guys don't follow the news, you don't understand the limitations of, you guys don't know the strength. I understand. I am limited by reality, and I know what we can and cannot do, and I offer solutions that are actually pragmatic based on what tools are at our exposal. Okay, but you just live in la la land. Like, oh well, we can't. Let's just change the constitution. Well, go ahead, go try, and let's see what happens. Go ahead.
Oh my god, yeah. I can't get over it to Russie.
Tyrant. You're a tyrant,
Yo.
but also weak.
Yo. Yeah, instead of actually being politically pragmatic, let's just live in a fantasy world where we have easy answers. Sounds like a plan.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Guys, the reason why this is a problem is because the solutions are hard. You pretending that we have easy solutions will make our job actually harder. You're not part of the solution. You're actually part of the problem, because this is complex. It's not like a button like, oh, let's press the deport button and all our problems will go away. Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, Secular Sakai just gave a super sticker, $5 super sticker. Thank you, Sakai. And we have a super chat by Prashi that I'm going to get to at the end because it's a little bit of a diversion. Sid Dave gave a super chat saying, jihadists seriously believe their mythology for real. By the way, these are all Trudeau voters. People with such views vote Democratic in the US, Labor in the UK. Sid, okay, again, this is a fundamental misunderstanding about what a lot of these people believe. A lot of these types fundamentally do not believe in voting. A lot of them do not engage in voting on principle. I don't know how much people actually understand that. Like people like Ali Dawa, who's even he's on a different level than the Yusuf Kathrada that we were showing about. He talks about how he doesn't
Depends though.
vote on principle.
Depends. Muslim Brotherhood's version do believe in voting. You do believe in using the democratic model.
I know, but
Depends
what
on the
about
brand.
like a real Salafi fundamentalist?
Yeah, some of them don't. Some of them say, well, let's use their methods temporarily to take them down, and then we'll get rid of democracy. So it depends on. So the Muslim Brotherhood will be like, yeah, let's vote anyways. Muslims will win the voting, but then their Salafis, we have different brands. Some of them say like we're against voting. Some people say like, yeah, we're against voting eventually, but right now this is what we have. This is the path that we have to use. Depends. It really depends. And some Salafis are just like, yeah, we're not involved in politics at all. Like we're just gonna go become extremely religious in our own, corner. So depends.
Yeah.
They're very different. They're different brands.
Some of them like hate the Democratic Party more than the Republican Party because they think the Democratic Party in the U.S. is just promoting full-blown degeneracy. So this is like a very
Yes. And sometimes they
simplistic way of
shift.
thinking about things.
So sometimes some of them, okay, they decide to be highlighting, they be anti-Republican or anti-democratic, depending on what's the news cycle. So if the news cycle is about LGBT and women rights and stuff like that, they will be more anti the leftist parties and more closer to the right-leaning parties. But if Israel becomes the news, all of a sudden they become more there. Depends on what's on the news more. Yeah. So again, I'm not going to get into the details.
Okay. Uriel sent a super chat jokingly saying every Jew is a prophet. Sid Dave gave a series of super chats, so I think I might address them at once. Saying 124k prophets come from some obscure hadith. They use that number to explain the existence of Buddhism, Hinduism, and non-Abrahamic religions. I've heard that before. Jews did not kill any prophets because there is no such thing as a prophet, and Jewish prophets like Abraham, Noah are mostly mythology, not real people. Well, obviously.
We're talking about the stories, not about real life. Yeah.
What is the myth that is believed to be true, whether or not it's actually has historical veracity? Okay. Another super chat from Sid saying Islamists, Khalistanis become a left-wing voter base in Canada. They are people of color, they promote their ideologies under protection of the left. Now, well, Armin, as a Canadian, I'll let you address this. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Once they get big, so they will vote along the way. This is a meme survival. So obviously, it makes strategic sense to vote with the party that is opening the door, okay, and letting them do what they want to do. But eventually, when they become higher in number and they become dominant, then they feel like they don't need the leftist parties' protection because they have their ummah, the Muslim community's protection, and they will turn on the leftist parties because they are the most degenerate in their mind, right? So when it comes to LGBT and women rights and everything else, they will turn more aggressively. So at first, they might be more aggressive against right-leaning parties, but as they become higher in number, they will become more aggressive against the very people who let them in because they are degenerate LGBT supporting feminist stuff that they don't like. And they don't need them anymore because they have each other.
So Dave is saying deport them to Nunavut in polar Manitoba. Okay, the idea that Canada is going to make their version of a Siberian like prison camp is insane. We're going to have Canadian Siberia. Just go send them out there. Come on. Sid also said Islamists do vote left because leftist Islamists do vote for leftist parties because right wingers will make it hard for Muslims to immigrate to the West. So it's the strategy to vote for the left. Okay, if we want to have a broader conversation about the red green alliance, about how particularly far left socialists, communists have essentially tried to remain relevant in a world that defeated Marxism based solely off of appealing to Muslim grievance, we can have that discussion. There is some legitimacy to that. But Sid, your statements are broadly painting the situation in a way that's not accurate. Um, but I'm not
Well, I
going
mean,
to
it's
deny
an
that.
average is correct. If you an average is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's important to point out when there are details that are inaccurate, because how are we going to be able to talk about this and address it appropriately, you know?
Right. Yes, true. But so if you're talking averages, there's two different forces on the left: the liberal force and the woke or Marxist or leftist force, or the woke force, right? So the liberal left is sometimes naive. So they get in line with Muslims not because they're trying to they're just trying to be sympathetic and protecting of minority groups, but they end up actually supporting Islam rather than protecting people's minority rights. So the liberal leftists are not they're not they mean well, they're just naive. However, the Marxists and the woke left, they actually recognize the destructive force of Islam and they want it, and they purposefully use that against liberalism. So because Marxists are a lot more violent and able to use force if they need to, but woke leftists are usually very weak, and they are not they don't like using force because they can't, okay, because they are pathetically weak most of themselves, but they see the destructive power of Islam, and they see it as a weapon, they see it as a grenade that they could throw at the liberals, right? They see the destructive force of Islam and they want to weaponize it because they're anti-liberal themselves, and they see Islam being anti-liberal as well. So they use the naivete of liberals to let them in, knowing that eventually this will become a force that they could use against the very liberals that opened the door to them. Again, not generalizing, just talking about averages.
It's a marriage of convenience. Uriel gave a super chat saying, I never learned Judaism as monotheism. My grandfather did not have one God and it's mine. It said, no, God is one, like Hinduism. Atman is Brahman. So you're, I guess, saying that you learned it as more of a monist tradition.
No. Okay, Judaism was always a religion that was coming out of polytheism, and it was always just a little bit had the tradition of polytheism a little bit in it, especially when you read the Old Testament. Okay, and it's God in the Ten Commandments asks you not to worship other gods. It doesn't tell you that other gods don't exist. It tells you not to worship them, basically accepting that there are other gods. So it's basically a move away out of polytheism, a gradual move towards monotheism, but still
Isn't it
with some
called
tradition of polytheism.
henotheism?
Yeah, it's basically going from polytheism to a religion that acknowledges the existence of other gods, but says that they are not deserving of worship, to eventually coming up having a religion that doesn't even acknowledge the existence of other gods.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that's it. Yeah.
Gajan is saying, I will take 4 experienced, swarthy, muscle zaddies over 72 inexperienced virgins any day.
Even if you like versions, right? Even if you like inexperienced versions, there's at some point a number that above that it doesn't make any point, and that there's some, when it comes to sexual interactions, there is something as reduced marginal of returns and pleasure, and that number hits close. Like seriously, that number hits to zero way before 72. I don't know where that number is, but
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely not 72. Like, I mean, if you have your 12 versions, for example, right? I could see why somebody who wants to go from 10 to 11 or from 11 to 12. But like once you hit like 12, like do you really now need like another one? Like how is that going to change your, the utility of it? I don't understand. Like even let's say, okay, fine, 20. Like once you have 20, do you really need 21? Like how is that going to make you happier?
Well, and
I
then
don't get it.
also, isn't the construction that you essentially are getting a new one every night and this goes into eternity and their hymens actually grow back?
Well, I mean, if they're supposed to be virgins, that means their hymens will grow back, right? That's the logical
Yeah.
conclusion. Right.
Yeah. I think this is like
Yeah.
a deflowering fetish.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. Garkad
And by the
defense
way, guys,
system.
they don't mean grapes. People who say they mean grapes, they don't mean grapes. But go on.
Oh, that's a
Go
whole
on.
different wormhole. Garkad Defense
Go on.
System gifted 10 Atheist Republic memberships. Thank you for the
Thank you.
generosity and welcome all our new members to Satan's Minions. Cajun American is saying, did you hear about Trump's comment of Christians just have to vote one more time and then they'll fix it so they'll never have to vote again?
Yes,
This
I
was like,
heard that. And
I heard about it. I didn't actually go listen to the clip itself.
So and if I listened to it a couple of times, did he say he's not a Christian in that same quote? Can somebody confirm this to me? Because I listened to it like 20 times and it sounded like Trump just, maybe I'm mishearing things, but in that same quote, it seems like Trump acknowledged that he's not a Christian. Did you guys hear the same thing, or am I imagining things? Can somebody confirm this for me?
Yeah.
That was like, sure.
Yeah, there's multiple neck snapping moments. You're like, excuse me, what?
What?
Sid Dave said Muslims in India also vote left for protection of Sharia law. Vote for the candidate who's best in position to beat the right wing BJP candidate. Now, if we want to talk about, oh my God. Yeah, the Indian left drives me a little bit crazy, in which like they're like, oh, we're trying to change Muslim personal law so that child marriage isn't allowed anymore and that there's no gray zone in the law that could maybe be used to permit child marriage and essentially the RAPE of young girls under the guise of these marriage structures, blah, blah, blah. And the left is like, this is discrimination against Muslims. Stuff like that is absolutely um uh mm, sorry, I have to be careful with my language. Smooth brained. It's smooth brained. And I hate it. So it really depends on the context in the country, and in certain circumstances, I agree with you. Uriel gave a super chat saying Islam a minority. That's wild. Uriel, this is not wild. There are many countries around the world in which Muslims are a minority religion. Globally, that's not the case. In many other countries, that's not the case. But Armin, you're
It's
muted.
kind of it's kind of saying like, oh, Christian a minority. That's wild. In the United States, Christians are not a minority. Well, yeah, but in Egypt they are. So,
Yeah. Okay. Um, people can be, disparately populated throughout the world. Um, Sid also said Trump is not a religious person. Everyone knows that.
But-
That's true. And the people
but
that think that are delusional.
that's not my point, Sid. Of course, I know that Trump does not take religion seriously, but he acts like he pretends that he's a Christian. If Trump has said, I'm not a Christian, a lot of you in the live chat acted like you're not surprised. You're not surprised because you don't pay attention. Trump not being Christian is not a surprise. Trump announcing, if he did, Trump announcing that he's not a Christian, that is a surprise. That is a huge news. There's something between like what we know and something that is confirmed and said. That it would be, if you're not surprised by Trump announcing that he's not a Christian, then you're not paying attention.
And the last super chat was from Prashi during the last segment when we were talking about circumcision and stuff. Prashi is saying, how can you be against circumcision but not against trans surgeries? Transgender surgeries are worse, total destructive of reproductive and urinary systems. Personally, I'm against gender affirming care for minors. Personally, if you're an adult, that's a different situation. If adult wants to go get circumcised, they can go do that. I'm against this for children. I used to have a different opinion based on the weight of evidence that has come out recently and the weight of his systemic reviews. I'm completely against this for minors. So I'm being consistent.
Yeah, how are we being let's clarify. Me and Susie are not against circumcision for adults. As an adult, if you want to go get circumcised, go ahead and do it. We're against circumcision on children and especially infants. And we are consistent because we're also against trans surgeries on children and infants. As an adult, you could go get trans surgery, and as an adult, you could go get circumcision. So we are completely consistent here. So what is the inconsistency? Yeah, tell us. How are we so tell us,
Yeah.
Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.